All right, everyone. Welcome to the pilot episode of the Gator Theory podcast. I'm Kwong with Trevor, and we'll kind of do a quick intro of what we're about, like the stuff we're interested in, and we'll start talking about some topics about what's actually going on. We're filming this January 4th, so Sunday evening. Right, some news has already been happening in the last few hours. But let's
hmm
have Trevor go first. Like, kind of introduce yourself, kind of the perspectives you would like to offer, or what do you think you're good at?
Yeah, so I just graduated UF with a degree in applied physiology and kinesiology this semester. So fresh off the Gator press, I'm a third generation Gator, and I've been following Gator football since I became a student in 2021 very closely. Before that, just a casual fan, but I think I bring some good perspectives on movement. And having been around the program closely, I had friends work for the program. I have some interesting, maybe more youthful insights.
Youthful insight. All right, so I'll add a little
Yeah.
bit to that. All right, so I own a gym, and Trevor actually is one of my coaches, but he also is studying. What you graduated with? What degree?
Applied physiology and
Yeah,
kinesiology.
yeah. So especially in that field, I think compared to most people, we have a lot more knowledge and then experience. So you'll see us like interlay that in there. I also have a background in Intel, so a lot of it is just like gathering information, making analysis, and I think you'll probably get that from our podcast. All right. So without further ado, let's actually talk about the first topic. First one's the state of the program, and I think it's really interesting, right? Because like we're in this, so we have a certain view. Like, so for example, it's like blasphemous when I hear people talk about, say, like Jaden Ball, and then they're like, oh, well, this guy's better. This guy, they're not, right? We're maybe they are, but from our perspective, it's very, very Gator
Mm-mm.
centric. Like a player with a lot of potential, say like Mizell, right? It hurts when he goes in the portal, right? But when you start looking around in like other programs, right? Like everyone has one of these like high potential players that maybe has performed a little bit. You've seen glimpses. You're hoping for them to figure it all out and hit, but then they're losing them in the portal as well, right? So, in your
Mhm.
opinion, what you think the state of the program is, and then also I want you to add if it's like someone from the outside looking in, right? So like a little bit less bias, a little bit
Yeah,
more objective. What do you think is that?
I think it's tough because, like you said, we're on the inside, and I think Mizell's a great example, right? Kind of the story of the Billy Napier era, a guy that you think he could play on Sunday. You see all these crazy highlights. The against Mississippi State 2 seasons ago when he took that screen pass like 80 yards to the house and he got called back because of that stupid blocking penalty or whatever. But other than that, those kind of players, I think every team has them, but something I fear is that in the last couple of seasons, we've been unable to get the potential out of most of our players like that. Obviously, Jaden Ball had his sparks, and he had that crazy spring game, and we all kind of knew from there on. But there's plenty of guys on the roster. I think of like Tank Hawkins, crazy speed, didn't get used, but I think that kind of speaks to the larger issues with the program. I think we're on the verge of irrelevance. Like I think we haven't won anything big since the late 2000s, and I was Googling earlier to try to find another program to compare us to, and Nebraska won three national championships in the
Oh my god,
90s,
yeah.
right? And now it's
All right.
Nebraska, so
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so
it's kind of
you
like
so
I
you
think it's really
think
important that
so you think if it was from someone else on the outside looking in, us and Nebraska are pretty similar?
I think I think we have a gap on Nebraska, but I think if we fail again with John Summerall, I think another 4 years go down the
Yeah.
drain. I don't know how many more coaches you can go through before the rest of the country goes, man, I just don't think Florida's got it anymore. And
Yeah.
I hate to say that as a fan, but
Yeah.
how many more can we fail? That's my
Okay.
question.
So I think I started following Gator football in 2002, right? So we started out, we were like recognized as about like a top 10 program. At one point, like mid late 2000s, like it probably the program at worst top three, right? It's like Florida, probably USC, and like maybe Texas. This is like when Nick Saban was first coming up. Like
hmm
Alabama had been
Yeah.
down for about 10 years, right? And then you just slowly kind of see it like wither away. I think here, when I was thinking about this question, I think here's like a good way you can categorize schools. Okay, so especially within transfer portal, a lot of schools are one coach away, right? And so
Mhm.
there's a few teams, right? Like Ohio State, you have your Georgias, maybe Texas, maybe you could put Oregon in there, where they're squarely like in contention. Like every year, people are expecting them to be championship contenders. Okay, so that's that first tier. The next tier, tier two, is I think where we're in, and here's how you categorize it. It's a school that's one coach away, right? It's one coach away, uh, and the differentiating factor between a school that's one coach away and then the next tier, let's just say like Nebraska, is that they have to worry about if they have to get a good coach, right? Because if they get a good coach that's actually competitive, their coach could probably get poached. And that's how,
Yeah,
for me, how you would separate these two tiers. Okay, so
but I think
it
we're closer than you think to becoming a team whose coach could get poached.
it's hard to tell, right? Because when you're in it, you're not sure. Kind of like when you're
Yeah,
you're like going through a hard time or something, you're gaining weight. You can't really notice it day to day, right?
until
But
you're,
like
yeah,
we're
yeah.
definitely like slowly drifting away. At some point, if we have a really good coach, that coach could get poached. Like then like we're in the next queue, right? So for example, like as much as we want to like crap on say FSU right now, right? If they got rid of Norvell, which I hope they keep him for as long as possible,
Yeah,
they actually
it
got
was
in
the best thing that ever happened.
a really good coach. Let's just say let's just not use a Sig, right? Because Sig is amazing. Right? We'll get into that. But let's say it's someone of I can't even think of it. Let's just say like a coach that puts them into contention, but is not recognized as necessarily like an elite coach. That coach is not going to leave FSU to go coach at Florida, right?
Yeah,
Or Oregon or Alabama. Maybe, but no, right? But
maybe.
you'll
Yeah,
get to a point where that does become the case, and then you're in the next tier, right? Because like, and from the time I started following college football, two good examples would be like Virginia Tech and Nebraska, right? In 2002, they were very relevant, right? Like Michael Vick was like running around like 2004,
yeah.
and then they had Marcus Vick after. Like they were at least in the mix, and like Frank Beamer was there. If they were competitive, Frank Beamer is not going to leave and then go to like Texas or something to coach. Like that wasn't a thing. And then over the last 20 something years or so, they slowly got to a point where if Virginia Tech has a really good coach, they probably will get that coach poached, right? Same thing with
Hmm.
Nebraska.
Yeah,
Even though like I think Penn State was rumored to get Matt Rule and he decided to sign an extension, but then Nebraska also kind of fell off, right? So like who knows? Maybe
yeah.
like Penn State got cold feet, but like I think you have the championship contenders. Then you have a lot of schools like I think Auburn is in there, USC. I would actually compare us to USC more than Nebraska. USC because they also won
Bigger brand.
they won I think what two championships back in like the early 2000s. They've been relevant here or there, right? And like if they get the right coach in there, they will compete. And when that right coach is in there competing, you're not going to be able to push them away, right? And then another school that actually jumped up to me would be like Oregon, right? So if you rewind back like 10 years ago, right? Willie Taggart was the coach at Oregon. He got poached by FSU. Then Mario Cristobal took over. He got poached by Miami. And then Dan Lanning came in and kind of elevated that
And that's now one
program.
of the best
Yeah, up
positions in the
another tier,
country. Yeah.
right? Up another, maybe two tiers where like if Dan Lanning is like successful, which he is, we're not
Mhm.
picking him, right? And I think one of the factors where it allows a school to jump up a tier is if you actually have a coach, let's just say in a lower tier, that is successful and is willing to actually stay there and not jump, right? Because the coaching profession, I think if you haven't figured it out now, right, it's all like how do I climb up, right? How do I go from
Yeah.
position coach to OC to head coach, right? How do I go from the AAC whatever to a Power Four conference and up into the SEC or Big Ten? And once you get in there, there's still some differentiation. But once you get to like the levels of like Auburn or say like Florida, right? Auburn, as much as we think we're better than them, we're in about the same tier as them. They're one coach away.
Mm-hmm.
If Golish does really, really well and he's competing for a championship, he's not going to leave Auburn to go coach at Alabama, right? But if we get to a point where if Auburn does well and then Golish could just get poached by Alabama, they've dropped another tier. And that's actually how I would kind of categorize the state of the program. And
I think
go ahead.
the Kiffin debacle, I think, showed us that we thought, at least internally, that we were that top tier, that we could pull from anybody in the country. And I think this is almost a return to reality with the fact that we are one coach away, but we're not Ohio State right now. We're not one of these top 5 jobs that can just grab anyone they want.
Yeah, and I think it's really important.
And I think that's where we should be.
Yeah. It's important to be realistic, because once you're realistic, right? This is where like if a person was doing this, you would call it self-awareness. You have to actually be honest and objective and realistic with where you're at. So then you could actually craft your strategy, for example, for the transfer portal, to go attack the transfer portal. If you're Florida and you want to pretend you're in that first championship mix right now, your strategy is going to be wrong. It might be a strategy that works for, say, Texas or Ohio State. It's not going to be a strategy that works for you. So and then one last thing on that. Again, I already brought up the SIG, right? This is why the SIG or Kurt Signetti at Indiana deciding to stay is so monumental, right? Because Indiana is in a tier where they should just be getting, their players, their coaches should just be getting taken as soon as you show.
They're down there below Nebraska,
right. And you could argue that if people actually got on the SIG a little bit earlier last year and tried to hire him, maybe they could have got him. Who knows, right? He's a different breed, right? But for a coach like that to decide to stay and then elevate the program, that's actually how you jump tiers. And thank God I'm not doing like a Virginia Tech or Nebraska or whatever podcast, right? But if I was, not only are you one coach away, but you're one coach, and then you need that coach to be willing to stay. And then more importantly, the coach is also able to get enough people that want to work with him and for him, where like your position coaches, your OC and your DC doesn't get taken. I've been watching a lot more Georgia Tech podcasts recently. Because I'm kind of interested in what it's like, right? Because we're literally going to have like a bunch of the players, their last OC, Philo, right? They're melting down because Brent Key signed an extension, but their OC is gone, their DC is gone. A bunch of their position coaches are actually going to be on our staff and then going to all these other places. And
their up and coming quarterback.
Yeah, and then a few weeks ago, some guy was like, "Oh, it's a lateral move," this is why Georgia Tech is in a different tier than Florida. Right, because if we had that kind of success, we're not going to lose position coaches to a quote unquote higher tier school, or like an OC or DC to a higher tier school, and that's just where we're at, right? So I don't know when we're going to fall into the next tier. If we missed on Summerall, that might be a thing, right? But at least for now, I think if tier 1 is championship contenders, we're in that next tier where we're one coach away, and that one coach is not going to get us poached. That's kind of how I view it.
Yeah, I think too that if Summerall whiffs, there's a serious risk. But I mean, if Summerall whiffs, you'd have to pull like a Signetti level turnaround with the guy after that, or else we would 100% be down the gutter, going from Napier to a failed Summerall to a whoever. I think 3 in a row. That's 12 years of irrelevance. If you go
which is why, like for example, right? I mentioned USC earlier. Do you that's, to me, that's how I view USC is about how I think outside people view us, except a little worse, because USC is they were in a worse conference, and they haven't hit rock bottom the way.
But they had their home run. They have their home run coach in Lincoln Riley, and it's just not going well for them either.
Is he a home run coach though? At this point, let's
you
be
wanted
real.
him.
Yeah, I did, of course. But as soon as he proves to me that I don't think he could win a championship, I'm going to move on. Right? Because
I don't think he can.
It's one of the worst things. So right now, do you think Lincoln Riley has enough juice to win a championship? It doesn't feel like it. Right? Something is just not right there. Something's just not right there. And if you just hold on, you just keep him around, let's just say for 3 more years, and then you fire him,
you wasted 3 years.
right? Or do you just kind of keep recycling through this until you hit, right? And that's kind of, like it's not our money with all the buyout. If there was no buyout, I think coaches should get 3-year contracts. And I think there's like clear
Mhm.
signs by year one, year two, and year three, right? Like there's coach like for example, like with Willie Taggart, I knew by like game one of that era that he's not going to work out, right? I think a lot of like FSU fans know, and like this whole buyout thing is just kind of ridiculous, right? Because a lot of the reason for keeping a coach before was, oh well, because the recruits were. It doesn't matter anymore. Every year is
Just
like
get new ones.
essentially a
Yeah.
1-year roster, right? Like I would actually do everything I can to like take out the buyout language and then incentivize it. Where if you do well, you actually like I'll pay you 20 million a year. But if you don't, right, then we can just kind of reset, move on. And I think for teams that want to compete for a championship, you have to start getting into that mindset because if you hold on to the wrong coach, even if they're okay, right, but like it doesn't kind of bring you to that championship, you're missing out on a window where like you're just slowly falling out of that tier and you're just more and more likely to fall out of that tier.
Yeah, I think in the modern era, Signetti has proved that you can turn. I mean, Nebraska or not Nebraska, Indiana was awful. I think I was watching the
Yeah,
playoff game. They were like 9-27 under the previous coach, and we're talking about a guy that, I mean, won double-digit games year one and is undefeated going into the
yeah,
semifinals. I think the years of like, oh, we got to give a guy 3 years. He's got to have his guys in the building. He needs to have his high schoolers. Like, first off, those high schoolers aren't even around anymore. You're not keeping guys for 4 years in a row, hardly ever. And with the transfer portal being the way it is, you don't need to wait for development with your guys. You're getting guys, off the portal. There's no reason you shouldn't be able. If your philosophy works and your coaching works, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to contend year one anymore.
yes. All right, so next let's actually move on to analyzing coaches. And then we have on the screen here Napier, Summerall, and Buster. We could probably like even throw another coach we want. But let's start with you. I think like every coach, when it doesn't work out, we tend to want to just say like everything they did was bad or good. But like, let's actually start out with something good, Billy Napier. What do you think his strengths were?
Yeah. So when talking about analyzing coaches, I have kind of three criteria, and it's recruiting, culture, and then like coaching on Saturday. And I think obviously those three feed into each other. And I think Billy was, I mean, punched above his level in recruiting and culture. I mean, culture can be a lot of things on a football team, but I think Billy definitely had a culture of brotherhood, we'll call it. I don't know if he had a culture of toughness, but the recruiting was possibly his best. I mean, definitely his best. His talent evaluation, his ability to find, like you said, Caleb Banks was a redshirt freshman out of Louisville that started
Yeah,
like a handful of games,
it
and
wasn't
he's
like
a
he
monster,
wasn't
right?
starting. He literally just like I
Yeah,
remember when we
like
signed him. I'm like, who is this guy? I looked him up. Like I think he barely had any stats of at all, and it's just like okay, and
it's
like
like, and then
yeah,
I mean, he's a monster, right?
yeah,
Jaden Ball's a three-star recruit. Most schools would have him at
yeah,
linebacker. I think like Georgia heavily pursued him at linebacker. He's the best running back in the nation. I mean, in my opinion,
yeah.
uh, even out of the portal, Ricky Pearsall, insane player for. I mean, Arizona State has a history, I guess, of decent transfers
He
to
was okay
Florida.
at Arizona State.
Yeah,
Like it wasn't he
and
was not
yeah,
someone who people were excited about. Yeah,
and he was. I mean, he's a first-round pick out of here.
yeah,
DK and Badger. I mean, I sometimes wonder if maybe that's why DJ looked so good his freshman season. We had two pretty good wide receivers out of the portal. George Gums, like these guys that come out of the portal, they're like, who? Like, why do we have the
yeah,
number 300 never player out of the portal? And then they end up starting or getting decent and putting up good stats. So
yeah.
I think that was really his strength, and I think he could make something. I don't know if he was. I doubt his staff was all that good at developing these guys. So he must have been able to see some kind of he just got eyes. He knows ball, I guess.
I feel like it's hard to tell how good a staff is at developing someone when like is it developing or is it the actual play calling, right? Like the scheme, like when you actually call the plays. If you're running the same three plays and any like decent defensive coordinator gets a read on that, and
It
and they're
doesn't matter the
yeah, they get the
development. Yeah,
jump on you. You're like you could look slow, you could look not confident, you could look like you're not doing but like you were just not set up to succeed in the first place, right? It's
Mhm.
I feel like it's really hard to tell. But I
I
agree.
mean, I
Like,
definitely
yeah,
have my opinion on player development under Billy Napier. Um,
yeah. Between his like evals and just especially in the transfer portal, even though it took forever, and then the recruiting, I would I would say he's if he's not an elite recruiter, he's borderline because he's doing it.
he's elite for sure.
He's
Yeah,
doing it
at
when like
JMU. Yeah,
he's doing it where nobody like we're not winning. You know, like we just keep we're not winning. We don't have the most money, and he just able to like year after year like pull these people in and then like mix in like about average recruiting with some oops that close with some
right.
just like with some like very like hidden gem like hits that
Sometimes I feel like he's
yeah
playing NCAA, and he's holding down that scalp button, and then
yeah
the little green
yeah
diamond pops up. Like he knew
yeah
something that other teams didn't, I guess.
yeah and I always thought like when Billy came in, right, what was the thing that people kept saying about him? It's like he's very detail oriented, right? And I'm like, okay, if this guy is detail oriented, how the hell are you not able to get 11 people on the field to do special teams, right? Why do you keep having to like call timeouts after like a TV timeout because you can't
Yeah,
get everything set on time, right? And I like I'm thinking probably the most likely scenario. He's not very fast or tactical, right? I think for someone like him, he probably needs to gather a lot of information. He wants to evaluate all that information, and then he has his like process. Who knows? He probably has like a 7-step
the
process. He's like,
process. Yeah,
okay, we need to gather this information and this and then this. Whereas like in a real game, right, where there's like a real like tactical like in real time chess match, and then like things will happen that's unpredictable. You need to be able to like think and react in a split second and make a call and go for it. Uh, Maybe like that wasn't a strength, and that's why like for someone that's supposedly so detail oriented, there's certain parts where like that trait comes out, but then like in an actual game, like you don't need to be detail oriented. You actually need to have good feel instincts, right? Like calling like it's like you're playing poker or chess with someone on the
Mhm.
opposite side. It's like a chess match in real time. Like you need to be able to react, make a call, go for it, like trust what you see. And I think that's where um, that just wasn't his strength, and it's kind of sad because I think in a lot of ways he was a lot closer than people probably like realize. But also, like if you can't see that's a deficiency and then fix it, then like you're cooked, right?
Yeah. It's like I mentioned those three criteria: put recruiting, culture, and game day. And I wrote right below that. Billy went 2 for 3, right? Amazing recruiting, good culture,
Yeah,
horrible game day. And I think I hopefully John Summerall bringing Buster Faulkner, a big splash OC, is going to provide us with that game day feel for the offense that we just didn't have under Billy. And hopefully John is able to keep the coaching, or sorry, the recruiting and the culture up. It seems like so far he retained the recruiting class, and it
so
seems like he's a pretty culture forward guy. So
so yeah, what's your what's your thoughts on Summerall so far?
I think hindsight is 2020. Um, Looking at how the Lane Kiffin experience went so far at LSU, I'm not sure that we really missed out on too much. I think obviously at the same time, maybe that's just me coping with the fact we didn't get our guy. But I wonder in 5 years if we'll look back and be like, man, I'm really glad we didn't get Lane Kiffin, even if John doesn't work out, right? Even
Oh,
if he ends up being a bust.
I'll say this right, since we're talking about Lane, right?
Yeah.
I think we were sold this narrative like he's changed, he's matured.
Seems like he hasn't, right?
No, he
I
no
think
no no.
I think he just got comfortable in Oxford, and they stopped
I
writing all
think he
these
stopped drinking.
hit pieces.
He started doing hot yoga, right? But
He
like
stopped doing cocaine. Yeah.
if I had a no, no, if I had to again, this might be like politically incorrect, but whatever. I think there's a very good chance that Lane is on the spectrum, right? Like there's something like
Yeah.
there's something with like social interaction. It seems like he's a little off. He doesn't quite pick up on social interaction. He does some weird shit, especially like posting
Yeah.
on
You saw
social
that
media.
post.
Yeah,
from the LSU message
it's
board
like
about him behind the scenes. Yeah,
yeah, and then but it's just like some of the stuff he posts on social media, where and when it's just like it's fine, right? But for someone like him, I don't know if you get this feeling, right? If I had to pick one guy, like just an offensive like genius, it would be Lane Kiffin,
it's Lane Kiffin. Yeah,
right? This guy is probably like seen in like 4D when it comes to offense. Like he's like if anything, he's probably like processing way too fast, and it's like okay, well, like he probably has all these like amazing schemes, and like you probably can't even recruit a team to execute what he actually wants to do in college. But he's someone like I get the feeling that like when it comes to like real time, like in game, like calls, like he see things, he can react, like kind of the opposite of what we just said with Billy, uh, but not very good with people, right? And then like one of the
horrible.
one
Yeah,
of the issues with him that I think there's like I don't want to say 100%, but very, very close to 100% chance that, even if he does really well in LSU, right? Let's just say he wins a few championships. At some point when it ends, it's going to be ugly. Like,
it's
there is a very, very,
gonna
very
be
low
awful. Yeah,
chance that it ends like, it ends like amicably. It's going to implode. You might win a few championships before then, but like, you don't burn bridges like this and not have it come back to bite you in the ass at some point.
I think LSU probably views him as a rental, right? Like we get four years out of him, try to get a national championship, but I don't think anyone is under
Yeah.
the impression he's going to retire a Tiger.
Now, having said that, right? If you could have Lane and all the stuff we just talked about, or Dan Mullen, who would you rather have?
I would still pick Lane.
I would pick Lane
I
too.
kind of
Yeah.
even when we were still in the mix form, I kind of viewed it as that rental. But like I said earlier, I feel like we're kind of falling down the national
Yeah.
relevance. Who cares? Get us two natties and a whole bunch of drama, and boom, we're right back. Gator
Okay.
boys stay hot, and we'll find another coach.
Okay. So if it's Lane or James Franklin, who would you rather have? Like knowing what you know now, and then knowing what you think
Knowing
you
what
know about James Franklin. I would take Lane,
Yeah, I would
right?
too.
It's
Franklin's
fun.
a
It's
hard read.
exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I think it is very, very unlikely. I don't want to say just like impossible. Very unlikely that Franklin will ever win a championship.
Mhm. At a
Lane,
certain point, his record against top 10, like that's not a coincidence. Yeah.
yeah, we're just saying another way. He just doesn't have the juice. Right? I just don't see it. Like there's just something missing there where you're like, you know what, this guy probably like has got it. Right? I think Marcus Freeman has it. I think Dan Lanning has it, even though they haven't won yet. But there's something about them where you believe they have a chance to win. Right? And like and just instincts, right? And obviously we could be wrong. If I just threw out a name of a coach, like, do you think this guy can win a championship? I think it's for most of them, even if like it's very clear, like you'll be like yes, no, or I'm not sure, probably yes, right? So like for example, do you think Josh Heupel can win a championship?
No,
I don't think so either. He just doesn't have the juice, right? But
he's got no juice.
When I asked you about Lane Kiffin, I mean not Lane Kiffin, Dan Lanning, yeah,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I'd be
But
surprised if he doesn't in the next couple of years.
yeah. So what about Jim Summerall?
It's so hard to separate my Gator bias from that, but I think he's juiced up. I think one of my biggest fears was that he was, not going to be that big of a personality, right? Coming out of Tulane, and then I watched actually the Josh Pate interview back from
Yeah.
like last season. He did like a 2 hour sit down. It's a great kind of view into the way he views coaching, and I think he's got that mentality. But I think it's still to be shown whether or not he can excel at the highest level, which is one of the main reasons I didn't want to go to the G5 for a head coach. Here we are, and I think honestly, looking back, between him and Golish, I think those are the two highest probability of success out of the whole field that was hired this year
The whole
out of the
G5 thing,
G5.
the whole G5 thing is ridiculous to me. Here's why. It's like because like don't confuse causation with correlation, right?
True.
Just
Yeah.
because like Billy came from the G5, like oh well, this guy, I don't know, this guy takes a dump before he hits a PR, so I need to go take a dump so I can. It's just like just because you've
Yeah.
been to the G5 doesn't mean, like it's kind of crazy. Like there's nothing about being from
Most
the
coaches
G5.
have coached in the G5. Yeah.
The Sig is from the G5. It was a
Yeah.
James Madison, which was actually whatever you call Division 2. While he was there, they moved up to Sun Belt G5, and
Yeah.
then like went. So like it's just kind of crazy to me. But here's why I'm not. I think Summerall has a shot, right? He's likable. There is a degree of like emotional intelligence, or at least like savvy with like media of the room. Like he gets it,
Hmm.
right? Like kind of some of the stuff he says. Like there's which is kind of funny because like every fan base, besides maybe like if you like maybe like unless you're an Oregon fan, right? We're just like, man, I just wish our coach is just a little bit more media savvy. Kind of gets the pulse of the fan base. And again, like
Hmm.
will address like what we're like concerned about or what we're interested in, and like speaks to us. And Summerall, whether it's at Tulane or here in Florida, so far it's like he gets it.
Hmm.
Right, he talked about doing gator bait, which might be a bringing back. Well, he talked about gator bait,
Yeah.
like in the opening
Yeah.
press
Bring back Gator Bait.
conference.
Yeah.
Right, he talks about like offense and went out and got Buster, which is we'll talk about him next, but like top, it was the number one OC on my list. We'll talk about why. Uh, Brought in Phil Trotwine. It's a layup, right? But it's been a layup
Mhm.
for Mullen and Billy, and they haven't done it. And like as soon as he comes in, right? Look at someone like the traffic, the traction he has with some of the recruits. Right, he's going to pull some people over from Penn State. Looks like it's just like the things he does. He gets it from like a fan base and media perspective, but they also make sense, right? I start getting
Mhm.
concerned when there's something, especially when it's very glaring, it's very obvious, and then the coach somehow like gives some like bullshit answer, which just doesn't address it or gets combative, and it's like very very obvious, right? Like Billy not hiring an OC when that's like the most glaring thing. Like there's clearly something
Mhm.
off with like the operation, right? The timing on your play calls doesn't feel right. The play design doesn't feel right. There's no rhythm. Like there's no momentum. Like you can't get out of you can't get out of TV timeouts without having to call another timeout like once a game,
Yeah.
right? And then for you to like say what you say to the media and then just not hire an OC and just keep like what are you looking at? What are you thinking that like the rest of us are missing, right? Or this is I think before you really got into it, uh, Mullen refusing to fire Grantham, right?
Third and Grantham. Yeah.
Yeah, like honestly, I think he probably the sign should have been there even in 2019. So 2019 we had a really good scoring defense, but like we continuously like choked up third downs against the better teams that year, right? We go into 2020, probably one of the best offenses we've ever had, and then the defense completely let us down. And the reporters, media people ask him about it. He's combative. Then he brings Grantham back again in 2021, and like by that point, I was out of Mullen, right? Because like if something's so obvious, like you can't even acknowledge, address, and then attempt to fix something so obvious, you're not a championship coach. You're just not,
Hmm.
right? Like at least show that and this is like not even like championship level. This is just basic level competence. If there is a glaring weakness, we should feel like that you see it and then you're trying to do something to make it better and fix it. Right? Like is that
Yeah.
is that so much to ask for?
Well,
Yeah.
it's kind of like when, every week,
Yeah.
you go in your little press conference with Billy Napier and it's like, hey, like,
Yeah.
how do you feel about play calling this week? And it's, well, I think the best for us to win, like, I think this gives us the best probability. What was the line? The best chance to compete or something with me calling the plays.
He
And it's like,
doesn't he
what
doesn't
data are
really
you?
he doesn't really even answer the question. right?
It's like, but what data are you basing that claim off of? Because all we're doing is losing when
Yeah,
you call plays.
yeah. Like if he wants, okay. So let's just say like, okay, I'm gonna put myself in the mind of Billy Napier. All right. God. Okay. And he's thinking, okay, so I have certain like I believe in this offensive system because which his offense system like you need a good tight end.
But they're
like,
not recruiting tight ends.
like
Yeah.
if you're not recruiting tight ends, you're not bringing them the transfer portal. But let's just say we're going to bypass that, right? And like with this offense system, it takes a little bit of time, right? We need to get the right offensive lineman in there. We need to get the right time. We need to get the right players in there. And then once is that continuity really click. So like I know it's frustrating right now, right? But also we just need time. And like abandoning like in the middle of this to switch to something else, just because it's not working, like it might lead to some short term gratification, but I think long term, sticking with the plan is a better process, right? We might not agree with it, but at least be able to explain why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, not just say, well, we're gonna keep doing it. It's like it's been 4 years.
Yeah,
I think he kind of was banking on that excuse of, well, we still need to get it right. And I think he just ran out of time for people to give him, you know, I
yeah.
think a lot of people gave him a lot of credit year one with Mullen leaving. You always hear about the disaster that
Well,
Mullen
that
left.
team. Like looking back now, that team was not talented. Like it was
2021, yeah.
devoid of talent, especially on the defensive end. You had a few pieces here or there on offense, and who knows with better coaching what they would have done. But like that's why he got the excuse,
He got
right?
a year, yeah.
Yeah, and then what happened after the first year, right? Patrick Tony moved on or was fired. We don't know. Brought in a new DC Coach Armstrong, right? Like and brought in transfers. Like so, there was an attempt to do stuff there, right? Now, obviously, they
Hmm.
brought in players on offense, but like if it didn't work the second year, right? If it didn't work the second year on offense,
Why did we have to endure a third and a
why did
fourth
you
year?
not bring in an offensive coordinator or change something with the play calling in the third year? Right, and it was just, and I think that's where like the frustration like really like, came in. It's just like it's something that's so obvious, and coaches, a lot of times like we go on message boards like, oh, do you think you know more than the coaches? In this case, it seems like we actually did, right?
Perhaps, yeah.
Right, and we actually, and it was just like so obvious. It's like it's too obvious. This can't be what it is, right? Because like if it's this obvious, and then our head coach who's making $7.5 million a year doesn't get it, like either we're wrong or this guy just doesn't like get it. And
And if we see it, every
yeah,
opposing team is going to see it,
yeah,
right?
and we'll never really know the answer, right? But I think like Billy is like elite. I would actually say he's elite in like in eval, especially with like unheralded players and recruiting to a degree because like the way he was actually able to recruit and then retain the roster with
Yeah.
like this kind of like product you're putting on the field and like just this like milk toast like whatever, like it was actually very impressive. Like if we put him in Katie Turner's role, I think if we put him in Katie Turner's
Dude,
role and made him like a
he,
recruiting director, that's probably the
he would
role that
be
actually fit.
unstoppable. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like he's good at building culture. Like Billy, you know you're the culture builder slash recruiting evaluator. Like he would probably be elite at that job,
Yeah.
right? Which kind of actually kind of leads to the next point. You see this a lot in real life, but also like in coaches, right? We tend to, when we talked about Lane before this. Wait, did we talk about Lane on this recording or the one before?
I think I think this one.
Okay, okay, right. We tend to want to promote someone because they're really good at a certain job, right? But like if you think about it, what it takes to be a really good position coach is a very different skill set to be a really good OC, which is
Mhm.
a very different skill set to be a very good head coach. And if anything, right, the more quote unquote genius level you are at the X's and O's and like the strategizing and all that stuff, typically the less good you are with emotional intelligence, dealing with people, managing an organization, and doing all the stuff a good leader is supposed to do, right? Just because you're really, really, really good and knowledgeable and proficient and innovative in offense doesn't actually mean you're going to be a good head coach. And I think a lot of times what you see is, oh, well, if this guy's a really good OC, the next logical step for him is to promote him to head coach. And you see a lot of people feel that way where like they were good at the role they're in, they're not good like stepping up to another role. And
Hmm.
with Buster, I think the reason why I was so high on him is because he came from a air raid background, right? He was doing air raid up until he went to Georgia, and then when he left Georgia, I think he was a QB coach there to go to Georgia Tech. He all of a sudden started running a completely different offense, right, to suit the strengths of that team,
To the
right?
roster, yeah.
Yeah. So if you think about it, right, for someone to come from a background, I think the easiest way to kind of like communicate this is I think if you're an air raid guy, or you're a like back like a West Coast guy, you're a, whatever,
Yeah.
right? You essentially have you have a core like idea of how you want to like start and attack everything, right? So if you're running, for example, Josh Heupel's offense, right? They spread everything really really far to the boundary, so you clear out the middle of the field, and then so you can actually run into a lighter box, because you can't have defenders kind of playing the run and the pass outside, and then if you want to actually stop the run, and then you're getting favorable matchups on the wide splits, and if you have the athletes to do it, right, you could take advantage of the one on one, right? So basically,
Hmm.
they want to actually take advantage of that. Um, if for example, could you imagine like Josh Heupel, which we consider him a good offensive mind, but being like, you know what, I'm going to completely change up my system because my personnel is not going to fit this. So then to run a very very different system, right, which involves essentially using Haynes King, your quarterback, as like a battering ram, and but he could throw, but he doesn't have the strongest arm. He's not very accurate, and so you take some shots situationally, but then tailor an offense where at one point they were ranked top 10 in the country in offense this past year. Like for someone to be able to do that, that tells me that he is willing to actually evaluate the strength of the team, tailor an offensive system to the strength of the team. That means he's
Hmm.
actually still like willing to learn and grow and evolve and change. And like that is like what else could you ask for in an OC?
And kind of the opposite of Napier in the sense of that, like when something isn't working for him or isn't going to work for him, he's willing to change it
Yeah.
and really do something that, like,
Yeah.
I guess maybe I've just been beaten into submission, but I don't even know what it's like to watch a coach who would, well, the run's not working. Maybe let's try to pass. Like that's not something, and that's obviously in a one game window, but in like the long term, like what can our personnel do? And
Yeah.
I think playing to the personnel, like you said earlier, let's recruit a tight end heavy off, or let's design a tight end centric offense and then not recruit tight ends, right? Like that's the opposite of what Buster's going to do, hopefully, and something that Billy really did terribly, I think.
Yeah. And then another sign of a well coached team, and which is why like if you watch like Indiana, right, you could argue like they're peaking now, right? They
Mhm.
struggled with Iowa early in the season, right? If you imagine like a good coach, okay, a good coach has an evaluation of the strength and weaknesses of the team. This is how the plays are going to run, right? As the season goes along, a good coach should be able to identify, okay, these plays are working, these plays aren't really working well anymore. We're not going to run these anymore, right? Which is the opposite of Billy,
like
right?
like
Yeah,
unblocked screens
yeah.
to
If
the
plays
far
aren't
side boundary.
working, right?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe we need just a few more reps, right? Like we need to like practice a little bit more. At a certain point, and this is where like a coaching and feel comes in. You make a call, like, okay, you know what? Maybe it's like game. You're in the Big Ten. The first like 6 games are all like cupcakes, whatever, right? I'm willing to still run these plays. I think we could still win, but like we could get these reps in to because if it hits, like the overall upside's a lot higher, right? As you get further
Mhm.
and further along the season, you should actually be honing in on the plays that work, take out the plays that don't work, and start like focusing on plays that really like are your most effective plays. And then you add in some new ones, maybe some new wrinkles off of it, where it's actually going to be effective, right? And then so if you're doing that, usually for a team, as the season goes along, it gets better and better. The team actually gets better and better,
Yeah.
right? And that so like if you watch say Alabama, are they getting better as the season goes along, or are they getting worse? Right? It's a data point. There could be other data points, right? Because DeBoer has proven at other places, again at a lower level at Washington, which he got poached from, by the way, right?
Yeah.
But like, did Billy's team actually get better and better last year? But did they actually get better, or is it like an injection of like a new quarterback, where people didn't really know how to prepare for them, and then like it's hard to tell, right? Would you have given Billy an extra year?
Last year?
Yeah,
No.
I was really out on him because before the season, right? He was like, "Oh, this is the best team we ever had." Blah blah blah. He's saying all this stuff, and then like we got blown out by Miami. And for me, I'm like, okay, it's over, right? Because
I
our
was
our
at that
coach
game and I knew right there
our
it was over.
coach
Yeah.
doesn't even know what he has. Like if you're saying you're an 8 and you perform like a 3, what happened? Either you're lying, which I don't
Remember,
think he
Khalil
is.
Jackson
Yeah,
started over Shamir DK in that game.
yeah,
Yes, I believe.
right.
Yeah.
So I was out, right? And then okay, whatever. I'm like, oh, all of a sudden the defense seems to be playing a little better. Whatever, we're a little like more lively here or there. And then once DJ came in, the feel was completely different. By the end of the year last year, I think I think we if we actually were in the playoffs, we would have been pretty competitive, right? Like I feel like everything like there's confidence, things were clicking. The defense, especially with Cam Jackson and Banks in the middle, playing with
Yeah.
like everything was like work like everything seemed to be like clicking, right? So like the team
But even
actually
in that
improved.
that Florida State game to end the
Yeah,
season last year, I think well that year we're talking about, I
yeah,
think they were just so awful that it really masked. I think the fluky win that was
yeah.
LSU and
And
Ole
then
Miss back to back because our offense was not good
yeah, but
against Florida State. We just
how do you beat LSU and Ole Miss on a fluke? Or
I think
how do you look so good against Georgia before DJ went out on a fluke?
yeah, I think that was a combination of that of the injection of your quarterback and then obviously the swamp gives you 10 extra points if you're a Gator fan. But I think too, like I mean, Ole Miss muffed that punt. Like those games were fluky wins. Those were Billy specials, I'll call them, right? We won, but it's almost like when
Yeah,
Billy beat a top 10 opponent at home, it's almost like he had the script, right? Like
yeah,
everything's going wrong the whole time, and then somehow we win, right? And it never felt like a confident win. And so I think maybe fluky's not the word because obviously the team played their heart out and played really well. But you could tell something like it never like I never felt like we deserved to win a game, right? It was always like, oh, thank God we made it through. There was never like a man, we beat the heck out of them, except for that
yeah,
Tennessee game 2 years ago. With
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what I felt like was okay. The team is clearly playing better now than it was earlier in the season, right? And at that point, you couldn't fire him. You couldn't fire him once like you feel like you kind of turn the corner. There's something there, right? Like you were gonna fire him, you had to fire him early the season, and then if you weren't, then if the team starts playing better, you have to actually give them the shot, right? And then kind of with the momentum and the rumor again through the message boards was that Billy was going to hire an OC, which would have been something very
Apparently he
different
was
than what he was doing before.
given an ultimatum that he had to after the Texas A&M loss.
Yeah, but he didn't, and when he didn't hire an OC, I think for me, I was hoping that you know Lagway could have taken a step forward. We could have been a little bit more legitimate of a program. And then when Lagway leaves, hopefully, we have like a mediocre year and then we fire him then. It was actually very, very painful. because I for me, I didn't really believe he was a long term solution. But like, you didn't really have like a window to fire him because I was assuming we're going to win like 8 or 9 games this year with the talent we had,
Yeah,
right? And then DJ,
you would have thought
he
the talent would have willed us to. Yeah.
yeah, and I think what actually happened this year, uh, if DJ even played like the way he did last year, and then I think would have been completely different. I think like nobody had it on their bingo cards that we were going to regress, right? Like DJ was going to regress. Like I
14 interceptions.
yeah,
Yeah.
like okay, like at the very least you get the version of him last year. Right, it'll be okay. And then Banks being out actually really hurt a lot. Banks and Cameron
Hmm.
Jackson because Ron Roberts' defense is very bend or don't break, and it relies on generating pressure with the front four. Right, and for us, we don't have that like twitchy like end that just like just gets around people or just beats people 1-on-1. We were actually getting a lot of push up the middle, and
Hmm.
like that, McLeod, like they're fine, right? I mean, McLeod's a freshman, but like without that push, like up the middle, our defense was okay, right? But we also gave up a lot of yards and then just kind of tightened up in the red zone. Like it was
Hmm.
okay. It's not the style of defense I enjoy, but like it wasn't as good as it could have been because Banks was out. And then you take that with DJ just completely regressing. And I think even though the team was more talented, you got what you got. It kind of makes
It
sense.
doesn't matter how talented the team is if the vital positions are not performing.
Yeah, right. But if that's what you have with DJ, you know, Trammell looked pretty good. Like, why didn't you actually design something around? Like, rather there could have been way like if if you design something different, put Trammell in. Like, if you tried stuff and it made sense what you're trying, uh, I'm on board with it. It's when what the coach does doesn't make sense and I can't really explain it away. That's when I'm like, okay, I'm immediately off the bandwagon because like I don't want to feel like I'm smarter than my coach. I don't think anyone wants like I don't think anyone wants to feel like they're smarter than their coach because then it's a miserable feeling having to actually root for this coach to lead you to whatever. And that's
Hmm.
kind of
We
that's kind of
used
what
to
happened. Yeah,
we used to play a game in the student section of predicting the next play based
yeah.
on down and distance, and it's disgusting how good you get at it if as the game goes on. It's like,
I
oh,
know.
2nd and 9. All right, we're gonna
Yeah,
pass to the left side, but
yeah,
like
yeah. And
5 yards.
and someone in the student section, again, this is supposed to be a chess match, can feel like they're like predicting even half these
Yeah,
plays. What do you think a professional who's actually supposed to be a defensive
yeah,
coordinator is looking at? You know.
yeah.
But
Like we're all hammered up there, just like inside zone, and
yeah,
then
yeah,
guess what happens,
yeah.
and it
Uh,
just it was aggravating, and I think I almost want to give credit to DJ, like he didn't practice. I don't think he's a bad football player. I wonder, like, was the offense designed for Trammell or designed for Aiden Warner, Harrison Bailey, and then oh, DJ's healthy, let's just plug him in. But because the play calling did seem different, right? Like we
I
took a
mean,
lot of deep
honestly,
shots with
honestly,
DJ.
I think I think the combination of taking the whole off DJ for sure regressed. You know,
Hmm.
he was way more decisive and confident his freshman year. Right? It's the same Billy playbook with like 8 plays and then like variations of the same 8 plays, whatever it is. Right? It's not like he doesn't know it. Right? Like maybe maybe defensive coordinators are playing him a little bit differently. Like like one guy figured out what worked and they're all just copycat it, and then he just never like figured it out. But he regressed. Like his mechanics are worse. Like it just it's I don't think I've ever seen anything like it where you have like a freshman that's like that promising, um, and just gets so much worse their sophomore year.
Significantly, even his,
You know,
his footwork regressed, which is something I thought was instinctual to these
yeah,
guys.
it's
I
one
don't
thing
know
if
how
you just
you.
don't develop.
Yeah,
Like he like wow, like the sky's the limit, but he just never kind of took the other step. But to like regress this badly, it was I never actually thought that was possible. Going into the
I
season.
didn't.
Yeah,
If you would have asked me to write down 100 possible scenarios for DJ's stat line, none of them would have said 16 to 14 touchdowns, interceptions.
yeah.
I mean, just I right? Like it's not possible to get worse. I thought you're a freshman. How can you spend a year under a coaching staff and get worse at the position you play?
Yeah, I guess we'll never know, right? Again, intel.
Well,
You'll
maybe
never
maybe he
know.
comes out and balls out at Baylor or
At
Florida
Florida
State, and
State,
we're like,
oh my God,
yeah.
no,
If he balls out at Florida State, I'm crying.
there's no chance. There's there's no chance of Florida State. I don't, I would be shocked if he goes there anyways. You know, you get into a
I
better
think he'll go to
situation.
Baylor.
Yeah, it's closer to home. You know, not as much pressure. You're not set up to fail, right? If
Legacy.
you go to Florida State,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, let's talk
Oh yeah. Florida State is.
transfer portal. So
Yeah. I have
let's
like something I want to say
go
about
ahead.
the
Go
portal.
ahead.
So obviously we have like 24, 26 guys, something like that in the portal, a couple walk-ons. And I think there's this kind of this innate instinct when Jacoby Jackson jumps in the portal to say, oh, now we got to go get another running back. And I think that while it's true, we need bodies and we need people, we need to fill the locker room. I think it's sometimes people don't consider that we can replace production out of guys like Aiden Mizell, Jacoby Jackson in house, right? We should be developing our freshmen to be able to take those positions and not having to say, we lost Aiden Mizell. He had 19 receptions for 177 yards and a touchdown last year.
Yeah,
There's no reason that Tank Hawkins should not be able to take those numbers. In fact, Tank Hawkins should be able to make more than that. Honestly, obviously Mizell was hurt for a couple of games, but I think there's this innate jerk reaction to we have like three or four running backs in the portal. So it's like, we need to go get three or four. And it's like Duke Clark um, looked real promising in his limited reps he took last year. I don't think we need to go get six starting running backs from, the Big Ten or whatever, bring them all into the building. And that's just what I think. I think that, you know, and I think too, because we're so biased as Gator fans, like Aiden Mizell put up a pretty bad stat line this year, right? But we all knew the potential he has. So when he leaves, we feel like we're losing a 5-star guy, right? Like one of the best in the country. When in reality, like every team has their guys that hit the portal. I don't know. I don't know. We should be as concerned with these. I like to call them depth chart warriors, right?
yeah,
Guys that are real good in NCAA football, but in
yeah.
real life they don't play.
So I think that like a really good analogy for what college football has become is if you think like fantasy football. Okay, so in a fantasy football league, right, you're just competing for that year. Now there you could play keeper leagues where there's certain players. Okay, you get to actually
Mhm.
bring them over to the next year, right? And then if you're playing a keeper league, your strategy, the way you draft, is going to be different if it's just year to year to year. Okay, in college football, there's still some like anchoring going on, and anchoring is like this idea where wherever like your first impression or there's something from before that's anchoring you to like a different ideology, even though it's changed now, right? So like I remember like first hearing about this term, like we learned it's like okay, one of the things that determines what the judge sets the bail at is what the prosecuting attorney suggests, right? They suggest a
Mhm.
million, they're going to adjust it off of a million. Whereas like if they suggest like 200 grand or something, it's going to be vastly different, right? So the initial suggestion actually sets everything else. In fantasy football, right, when I was growing up, uh, drafting a running back in the first round was just the thing to go, just the way to go, right? Then like PPR came in, like things, like now like drafting a running back isn't necessarily the best strategy. I can still tell you every year when it comes to fantasy football, I still feel the urge to like get a good running back early. Okay, I know
Yeah.
this logically. I know this, and the emotional anchor is still pulling me towards that. College football up until what 2021, 2022, when the transfer portal came along, recruiting was the lifeblood of the program, right? And when you recruit, you're essentially getting keeper players, right? So
Mhm.
yes, like some of these players can contribute right away, but like you're also counting on them to stay in the program, and maybe by year 3 or year 4, they're going to contribute. And then with the transfer portal and then taking away this like need to sit out a year, it has become fantasy football without keepers. right? So if you have a player with a lot of potential on your team, but he's not going to play, and you're paying him money, you are pissing away your money, right? It feels nice to have the 5 star, right? And then like when you're playing, say this team, like, oh, look at the talent composite. There's like 4 or 5 stars on this team. It doesn't matter. Is that 5 star actually able to contribute now? If they're not
Mhm.
contributing now, they're a waste. They're wasting your money. It's like this like false. It's like this false thing you have where like, okay, yeah, we have this talent, but he's not playing. By the way, that's Drake Stubbs this past year, right? However
Yeah.
much we're paying him, he wasn't even the second safety. I don't even know if he was a third safety,
Did
right?
he get on the field?
I
Because
think
he
he
was
did a
behind
little.
Alfonso Allen
I
on
think
the
he
depth chart.
got on the field a little bit later on, right? But like we literally paid money for this guy that didn't do anything, and like I was like, thank God. Luckily, we kept him, right? We'll see if he actually
Because
develops.
he's a good
But
player.
like
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like he easily could have just gotten paid by some other school. Let's just say Bowling Green or something. It's like, hey, you know what? You're a former borderline, 5 star. We want to offer you maybe 60% of the money you're getting at Florida, and you're guaranteed to start. And he just goes away. That, however much money we're paying him, let's just say like 400 grand that we're paying him, we literally just lost that. We just lost that.
Because he didn't play. Yeah.
You can't recoup it. You literally had a whole season where you're paying 400 grand, and there's an opportunity cost, right? That 400 grand could have actually gone somewhere else on your fantasy football team for that season to actually make a bigger difference,
Yeah.
right? So yes, we want a lot of these high rated players, but in my opinion, when you're evaluating any player, it's a high school player or a transfer portal recruit, you have to evaluate them for how much you think they can contribute this year, right? So if I'm bringing a high schooler, can this guy maybe like be good enough to be the backup? Okay, then I'm going to pay him backup money, right? Now, the positive of a very high upside player like that you have in your system is you get first dibs on him, right? Because you see him day to day, you see him develop, and if he's actually getting better, he could still get poached, but you could probably get him to come back the next year for a little bit cheaper. Also, you might actually get a player that is ready the next year that people aren't in on yet that you can play, right? But like
Yeah.
for a team like Florida, I don't think we really have the luxury to be playing that game right now. Like we don't have a lot of luxury to be playing the potential game where we're allocating uh, our funds towards potential. That's not going to contribute now. Ohio State can do it, right? Because they have more money and they're more stable. But like almost all our
And their team's
funds,
already good.
yeah,
Yeah.
almost all our funds, in my opinion, needs to go towards a roster where all that money is paying for someone that could produce this season, right? So like if they're not able to produce this season, right? Deuce Snyder over there in Auburn, essentially all of these like 5 star quarterbacks. Like, what are you doing? $3 million to say like Deuce Snyder? You could have gotten 3 like top tier offensive linemen that could help you this season instead of Deuce Snyder, right? And then you could probably get a player of his profile if he was sitting on the bench because like a true freshman quarterback is just probably not going to be ready. You could probably get him the next year for cheaper, or you could get someone else for
Yeah.
like cheaper. So like you have to start thinking about it that way. Whereas like we're still anchored and emotionally attached to we need that 5 star quarterback. We need this like 5 star player. No, no, no. Is this 5 star player able to contribute now? If you're LJ McCray and you're a year away, I don't think we should actually take him. If you're Jaden
Mhm.
Woods and you can actually, be a good backup or even a solid contributor, not a star yet, but a solid contributor, then like we're talking, okay, we might be like willing to pay you, right? And
Mhm.
I think like the transfer portal strategy, hopefully, from all intents and purposes, the way the quote unquote insiders are communicating this, us hiring a GM, all this stuff, I think we get it. But like the fan base hasn't really quite caught up to this. I think there's a lot of emotionally anchoring to the previous era where having talented high ranked star players is still really important. It's like just having
Mhm.
like Garrett Wilson on your IR. Like I had him, or I have him
Yeah.
on the bench. He might come back. He's not helping you. He's not help. He's literally like taking a spot. Like you could actually get rid of Garrett
Yeah.
Wilson because like you have to draft him again next year, and then like bring in someone maybe with higher upside and maybe like a good handcuff or a running back where like he might hit, he might be a good backup, whatever, right? Like yes, this backup is not as good of a player as this like star. Like he's not as
The
he's
star
not
isn't
as
doing
sexy,
anything.
but
Yeah.
that star is not doing anything. Like potential has just kind of lost a lot of its value because you can't keep them. Like you're not guaranteed to be able to keep them. Or another way to put it is it's way too easy for them to just move on.
Yeah. And then you
Right.
wasted money.
Yeah. So with the transfer portal, and this is why it blew my mind that, you know, Billy didn't get this. Another indictment on him. The first thing you should do with the transfer portal, in my opinion, is you want to make sure you have no glaring weaknesses. Okay, like you have to make sure you have no glaring weaknesses. So going into this season, either they completely misread our safety room, or they just had a shitty strategy, right? Like I would say on defense, someone like Bryce Thornton should be like your baseline. Like Bryce Thornton is not the
Not your
most
best player.
talented.
Yeah.
He's not the most talented. He's fairly instinctual. He seems to be in the right place at the right time a lot. He doesn't fit the run that well, right? He gets beat here or there, but he's like solid enough where for someone to beat him, they were a good player, right?
Mhm.
I don't know if I want to start talking trash about the other safety, but we had a very, very glaring weakness at the other safety spot. And he was actually
Mhm.
projected to be the starter coming in. So either like you're not evaluating your talent right, like or like I don't like I can't explain the rationale to me. Like how do you have a
So
whole transfer portal window, a whole year to evaluate this, and then you didn't actually upgrade at the safety room so that you have a
it's
yeah
and it's so paradoxical because we just got done talking about how amazing a talent evaluation Billy
yeah
was. But it seems like he was only good at evaluating talent when they weren't on his team. Um, you want to talk about,
yeah
like I said earlier, Khalil Jackson started above Shamir DK. Um,
yeah
I mean, you're talking about a walk on
yeah
coming off of, was that before or after he tore his ACL? I think it was coming off of a torn ACL, if not before it,
yeah
versus the guy who just led the NFL in all-purpose
yeah
yards. And I mean, amazing pull out of the portal, but then you don't even start the kid. It it doesn't make sense to me because he. I mean, it seems like sometimes it got it right. Caleb Banks pulled him off the bench at Louisville, started him.
yeah
Clearly, he evaluated that talent properly. But then at other times, I mean, you have Jordan Castell.
Yeah, it's a mixed
Like,
bag. It's a mixed bag there because there are
yeah,
times where I'm like, oh wow, okay, he was actually on this guy early, and they were right, like he played him. And then you have like Jordan Castell. Like there's no way that you just watch tape, you watch film, and then you're like, we don't have a weakness at safety,
I
right?
think I don't want to say this, but I feel like you could have put me out there, and I could have done about the same as Jordan Castell
No,
did
I don't.
last year.
I don't know about
I
that.
can I can
Yeah.
backpedal and just keep the enemy in front of me,
Yeah, just keep it in
just
front of
keep
you, and
backing
then just
up.
kind of like
Yeah.
dive for the legs when it's like a running back.
It's,
Hopefully, you'll make a
yeah,
hit
just
like
like,
that. Yeah,
oh, yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I
So
mean, or randomly smoke somebody and get a pass interference call, every
yeah,
now and then.
so going into this window, right? I think we established we're tier two, right? We don't have
Mhm.
more money than everyone else where we could just start like blowing money everywhere. Uh, the most important thing I want to see, and we won't really see it until the season starts, is that there's no glaring weaknesses on the roster.
Mhm.
Okay, it's not like there's a Jean Delance, which is probably is that before your time? That was like a right
Yeah.
tackle Mullen. Where it was like, why is it was just like what like he just got beat. It felt like he got beat maybe 70% of the time. And it's like we just don't have another option. Like because
No one,
when
yeah.
because like when you have a huge weakness, a huge liability on either side of the ball, it literally just blows up your game plan. It just
Yeah.
blows it up, right? Like they don't have, not everyone has to be a star, but it's very important that you don't have a glaring weakness. So you're like, you can actually be a well balanced team. So when you're strategizing, you don't have to like plan around one position or a position group that just is just
Mhm.
non-functional, right? So
And I think that was kind of the story of our secondary
yeah,
last season was Castell, and then at times, I mean, Cormani McLean had some great plays and some terrible plays, and I think you kind of just owe that to him being young and inexperienced. But
yeah,
a lot of
but
teams targeted him.
going into the season, Cormani was our third cornerback, right?
Yeah,
Dijon and
and
Devin Moore were starting, and then Sharif Denson Gates were a star, right? Like he was the nickel,
yeah,
like it's that I'm okay with. But you're starting safety,
starting.
you're starting safety. Okay, so like right now, right?
Hey, you got
Uh,
that pick,
yeah, we got Castell's gone. Might go to LSU. That'll be amazing.
really?
Yeah, it's like LSU. I don't know. There's like three teams. We'll see when he signs. Okay,
Yeah.
so we need another safety, right? We just got DJ Coleman. I don't know if he's going to play
Hmm.
star or safety, right? So we got that.
He's a Yeah, he's out of Baylor,
Um,
number 9 safety in the portal. Yeah.
yeah, right. And they're moving Javari Flowers, which I actually really like, um, to the star. And we'll actually talk about. He's
Mhm.
actually one of my breakout candidates. I talk about why. And then Gates should come back. I think I don't know. Is it ACL again? I'm not sure what Gates' injury was. They might bring in another guy, maybe to like play that spot, right? Basically, anything that going in, I'm like, okay, there's a question mark. There might be a weakness. I want to see them show up the weakness. And here's why. It's not that I don't want star players, right? We already have potential star players. If Ball comes back, I think he's a top 3 running back in the country. Dallas and Burnell are potential star receivers. You don't need that. Like you can't even afford that many star receivers,
Yeah.
right? Like you just can't. Like it's just too much money, right? So you have those two. You have Abrams, and then you could get one of these like G5 guys like Isaiah Cannon, whatever. Like high upside guys that run fast, that have show some promise. Like you might be able to like develop them. You bring in like a guy like Bailey Stockton or whatever. Like who knows, whatever, right? Like I'm okay there. Like we have enough stars where you can game plan around taking advantage of the stars.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
important for this first year that you don't have any weaknesses, like glaring weaknesses.
I think, well, here, I'll ask you this. And what do you
Yeah.
think right now with the roster, the biggest weakness is?
The biggest weakness,
Mhm.
I mean, it's a cannon colt. Like it was safety.
I think, yeah, I think safety or even corner. I think with Devin Moore leaving, we don't really have. We had
Well,
Jason Marshall Jr. into Devin Moore. We always had that lockdown corner for the last
yeah.
couple of years, and
The reason why,
I'm really concerned.
yeah. So I think we're looking pretty good for that. The number one portal safety from Iowa State,
Yeah.
and this guy is interesting, right? Because he was supposed to be this big thing going into this season, and then he got hurt really, really early. But like his profile, if you watch his film, like he pops. Okay, so he actually has star potential, and for him, it's like kind of getting like an injured guy in the 5th round who actually has a 2nd round grade. So assuming he's
Mm.
healthy, uh, that is actually probably your star cornerback. And it looks like we're probably going to land him, right? So we do
Well, I would
land
love
him.
that. Yeah.
Dijon's Dijon's on the upside. Hopefully, he's healthy, and then you have Hanks. Hopefully,
We
take a
just,
step forward.
yeah.
Probably playing
Someone has to
yeah,
step into that
yeah,
cornerback one role that's been, and honestly,
yeah,
in good hands the last several seasons. Yeah.
yeah. Which we're going to talk about strength and conditioning next, right? But then you need to stay
Yeah.
healthy because because like in today's like landscape, I think you could get a decent 2 deep. If you have to get past your 2 deep, you just
Hmm.
can't like you can't allocate your budget that way. You just can't anymore, right? You can't really do
Yeah. You
anymore.
can't afford that many corners.
Which
Yeah.
I think for a transfer portal strategy, and Billy would have been great at this. There's a lot of like unheralded players with amazing potential, right? Athletic potential. They either have the frame, they need to grow into their body. You can already see signs of like a lot of feel, but they haven't quite put together, right? those players you could get them for a scholarship, maybe pay them for a little bit, and you're not going to get a lot of competition for them. And if they develop, you'll get first dibs on them, right? Like you'll more likely than not. Let's just say you get a 3-star that doesn't have a lot of hype coming in. Even if they develop, unless you have some like mole on your team or like they just really pop in the spring game, right? Like you you more likely than not will at least get to play them on the cheap for one season when they like kind of really like
Hmm.
break out, and then they might get poached, right? So like for the remaining spots, and then like with your scholarship and just a little bit of money, if you could actually fill the roster with a lot of those type of players, uh, honestly, uh, have you play fantasy football, right? I've been talking about fantasy football.
Yeah, not this season, but yeah, I
Okay,
do.
okay. So one like strategy is called stars and scrubs, right? And it's
Yeah.
yeah, and it's really for like auction where you essentially you spend almost all your budget on just stars, and then you just fill out the rest of the roster with like
It was,
with
and hope that one of them hits, right?
yeah, just with a lot of like high upside like players. Like you hope they hit, right? When I'm actually advocating for high school recruiting, is you kind of go the stars and scrubs route, right? So
I like that. Yeah.
you pay high school players that you think can contribute right away and also like could really like develop in the future, right? Those are the ones you pay. And then the ones that might need a year or two to develop, like if you don't think they could play right away, don't take them, right? Take the 3-star, the lower rated, the ones where you don't have the competition, you don't have to pay that much. Offer them a scholarship, pay them, I don't know, 50 grand, right? Scholarship, 50 grand, right? You could pay like 20 of those guys, and that's $1 million.
Just have an army of scrubs. Yeah.
Yeah, or not an army of high upside players
There we go. Yeah.
where like you're way more likely to be able to keep them, and if they do develop and hit, let's just say this like 3-star turns into Jaden Ball, right? Well, then you have them the next year for a lot cheaper than what their production is going to be, right? Because their risk or their reward versus risk ratio is worth it. But if it's like
Mhm.
some like solid 4-star, let's just say you mentioned Tank Hawkins, right? But this
He's
guy
in the
has
portal though,
this
right?
guy's yeah, this guy's really fast, right? Like, but he's like a 4-star coming in. He's very fast, right? But he needs probably 2 years to get ready. But he's a 4-star. He's really fast. So other people are kind of on him too, and I had to pay say like 120 grand for him. Not worth it.
Not worth it.
Not worth it, right? Because
And
like
he's fast. Yeah.
yeah, because he could get you have competition for him. He could get poached really easily, right? So why not save some of that money and really stack it onto the stars, and then you take these like high upside players,
Yeah.
And again, there's
I think this
yeah,
kind of loops into the strength and conditioning though, is your depth. I think depth is a fleeting concept in general in college football, obviously with
yeah,
just the way that people are moving around. But I think if you have 20 guys and three of them pop, right, you get a great deal on, $1 million spread across 20 dudes and three of them pop. You basically got 3 stars for $1 million. But what happens when you have like, I think of the end of the season, I guess 2 seasons ago now, when, we're down to walk-ons at corner
yeah.
and Triquez Bridges has to come down and play corner because we have so many
Which
corners hurt. And now you got
dude,
$50,000 3 stars out
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. I love Bridges. Bridges is
Yeah.
what
He
another
was
like good eval by Billy,
yes, right? Yeah.
right? Like well, he started out on the bench, right? But the ones they like put him in, like he was playing safety. He got an I think even like a star for a bit
I
corner.
hadn't seen a
He
safety come downhill and hit
Yeah,
somebody
they
in
play
two
him at whatever
years. It was
position, and then
amazing.
he would pop on the field, right? Like I mean, he wasn't like all world, but he was more than like solid, and it
Mhm.
was just yeah, versatile. Okay, so let's talk about strength and conditioning. How do you tell if a strength and conditioning program is good if you're from the outside?
I think this is a big misconception, actually. I think a lot of people judge, um, they look at the injury report or they look at
Mm-hmm.
the number of people hurt. And I think coming from that department at UF, not the football side, but the strength and conditioning like education program, um, at the end of the day, when you have two 300-pound men running at each other at full speed, like someone's gonna get hurt. And I think there's a misnomer a lot of times that, oh, we have 6 players hurt for this game. Like that means our strength conditioning coach sucks. Now, when you have an injury report with 30 players on it and you're playing Kentucky or whoever, and they have three,
Yeah,
and it's every week, there's clearly something going on. I think when you have a player like DJ who has a shoulder problem, has a hip problem, um, Trey Wilson had to get like some kind of hips, like genetic hip deformity surgery, is
yeah,
what I think they called it. All of these, and obviously, strength and conditioning coaches aren't clinicians, they're not doctors. There's clearly some kind of pattern that is resulting in I don't know if it's maladaptive movement because
that's
you
actually
know
exactly what I think it is.
you think it is there's
Yeah,
some kind of movement pattern they're training that's making them move wrong. And the
yeah,
other thing, so I want to give credit to and not say, oh well, we're injured all the time, strength coach sucks. That's not usually the case, but it seems as though there is some kind of pattern of injuries the last 2 seasons under Tyler Miles, who became the strength coach after our previous guy got poached to Boston College. It seems as though there's some kind of movement pattern that they're teaching. I don't know if it's in the weight room and the running. I never was involved in the football. I had friends that were,
yeah.
um, but interns don't get to see all that kind of stuff
Uh,
happen. But it seemed as though there's I don't know if it was the program, if it was the way, like they have speed specialists, right, that are teaching
yeah,
these guys how to run fast. Like maybe they're teaching them to run funny. I have no idea, but something was causing us to have, like, I think about Jason Marshall Jr.'s shoulder injury, right? He missed the last couple of games of that season, of his senior season, because he dove out of bounds and he landed on his shoulder
yeah.
and he headbutted himself and like tore ligament in his shoulder. Right? That's not a strength and conditioning problem.
That's not.
But
Yeah,
when you don't get hurt, on Saturday, right, in the game that I watch, and then I show up to the next game next Saturday and you're out, that's unacceptable, right? Like we're in the season. How are you getting hurt in between games, right?
yeah.
Like you don't get taken out, and it's bad. It's like you missed 2 weeks because you got hurt on a Tuesday practice. Like, what are we doing? That really bothers me, if you can't tell.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll give you my, this is my theory on this. Okay. So let's talk about what I think a good strength and conditioning program should be doing. Okay. I think it should be doing three things. You should actually be preparing your athletes to maximize football performance, right?
Mhm,
So that includes not being injured, and then whatever you train them to do should translate over onto the football field. Okay.
mhm.
So that, like, I'm talking about like actually training functionally and not just like lowering body fat or looking really, really jacked in the picture.
Yes,
Or who gives a fuck about that? Like, it doesn't matter,
the classic, the
Yeah.
Billy Napier. We
Yeah.
gained 500 pounds of
Yeah.
muscle. Yeah,
I could get
like
you on
yeah.
some like Ozempic or something. You could lose fat. Like, no, I'm just kidding. But right, but like like that's very hard to measure. Never mind as a fan that has no idea what the programming is, what the culture is like, and I don't even get to see these players close up. I'm like really, really far away, right?
Mhm,
But actual like performance translating onto the football field, I think obviously like we agree with that. So it's not just getting stronger; it's translating to football performance. Two, I think it you should be helping set discipline and like good habits, right? So like if you can't show up on time to like work out in the off season, are you going to show up on time like when it's like during the season for like walk right? Like so it's a
mhm,
continuation of
yeah.
like discipline, culture, and all that stuff. And then three, you're building mental toughness and chemistry. Okay. And
Mhm,
in my opinion, let's actually start there first. The best way to build mental toughness is to actually do something that's very challenging and hard and then getting through it. And then like knowing that you
mhm,
did it and knowing that you had to push a little harder than outside your comfort zone and you're able to do it. Right. So like, what we do is like, oh, you go to a dark place. Uh, I don't know if you've ever like just kind of not gone to a dark place for a while in a workout. And then you're like, oh, I could push hard. And then you try, and then you just like, oh my God, I just quit. Like first time I realized that,
yeah.
I spent about 6 months not like pushing really hard. And I'm like, oh yeah, like the cardio comes back fast. I just start pushing hard. Literally, whenever it got hard, I just wanted to give up. And I actually did, right? But if
Mhm,
you're used to it, that mental toughness and resiliency is there. Okay, so you're not doing it to actually get stronger or perform better. Like part of like working out is that you actually have that toughness. When you're
Yeah.
building toughness, you should be having people do stuff that sucks, but it's not dangerous, right? So if you like watch like Swamp Kings and they talk about Omarius times, like they were just like making him leg press until like his quad exploded.
Yeah.
That's retarded. That's retarded. Okay, like make them do like a very tough anaerobic workout or something where you just feel like like the whole body's hurt. Like,
Just
but don't
burn.
but
Yeah.
don't put them in a position where their quad can actually explode. Like, what are we doing? Okay,
Hmm.
so, and then obviously like the discipline culture stuff. Doing team building stuff, like going through the tough things together, like all like holding them accountable, like all that stuff, right? But let's actually get into the football performance part. Okay, and here's my theory on this. If I want to know if a strength and conditioning program is good, and this is like kind of like medium confidence, I want to look for two things. One, do the players believe in the strength and conditioning program? They're not going to believe in it. They're not going to believe in it unless they somehow feel like they're getting something out of it, right? So the
Hmm.
messaging, and they could be, they could be delusional, but the messaging is actually connecting to them, and then their experience is matching up with the messaging where they believe it. Okay, and that's very important because like it could be a placebo effect. When you're confident in it, whatever they're trying
Half
to
the
do, it's
battle.
more
Yeah.
likely to work. Okay. The second one is the number of injuries you have. Right. So I saw this stat. I didn't verify it was true. But like from like 2022, I think on until like now, it's been like 3 years, 3+ years. We've had more people on our injury report than every team we played from 2022 on,
Every single game. Yeah.
something
Not a
like that.
single game.
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
Now, football is when you have a contact sport like this, it's not a controlled movement, right? So someone could come and hit your
Hmm.
knee from the side, which like what happened to Aaron Gates last year, and then your ACL tears. I don't blame strength and conditioning for that, right? So not all injuries are the same, but when you're
Hmm.
consistently having more injuries than the opposing team, my theory is there's not enough emphasis on functional or correct movement pattern, right? So just a little bit more on that. If you squat, right, you could squat where all the muscles that are supposed to work are working equally together. Or you could squat in a way where maybe your hips are a lot weaker, so then you're just shifting forward and using your quads a lot more than they should.
Hmm.
Or you're doing the second thing, which is a dysfunctional squat, you're going to put a lot more stress on your knees, right?
Hmm.
And so if you're squatting that way, then you can imagine when you're running, jumping, landing, and there's a lot more stress coming from your quads, but then not enough on the hips to even it out, which is the way the joints are designed, then with every movement, you're a lot more likely to actually hurt yourself, right?
Hmm.
If you're a very explosive athlete, say someone like, which is all the Division I football players, but let's just say someone like Saquon Barkley, right? And like there's like a college video of him at Penn State, like power cleaning 405, right?
Ridiculous. Yeah.
We talked about this when he caught it and he landed, his
All
knees
quad.
internally rotated, right? His knees internally rotated, which tells me that his adductors aren't strong enough compared to his quads to actually stabilize that, right? Because when it turns
Hmm.
in, and then what's an ACL tear? It's an acute internal rotation, right? So when you're that explosive, the more explosive you are, the more important it is for all the parts to work equally, right? Like if you're like,
Because the more force you're
yeah, if you're
generating
like a
about
weak
each joint.
grandma,
Yeah.
whatever, right? You're not generating that much force. Like even if you're imbalanced, you're not going to tear your ACL. But when you're Saquon Barkley and you plant and your quads are strong enough, but your adductors aren't, and then your
Hmm.
knees are going to turn in because of that, you're a lot more likely to get hurt.
And he did have an ACL
And he did
tear.
have
Yeah.
ACL, and and I actually remember seeing him in Penn State. I'm like, oh wow, like this guy's probably going to tear his ACL, right? So like when you have a
Yeah.
lot of injuries like these, I think fundamentally there's something going on where they're not focusing on correcting movement patterns, and they're just trying to build
Yeah.
strength on top of a dysfunctional movement pattern.
So I have some insight into this. So
Okay.
a friend of mine
Yeah.
worked as an intern, and part of his job was uh, contralateral movement measurement, which is like a really fancy way. Basically, Tyler Miles, before he got promoted, was
Yeah.
the sports science coordinator, and then he got promoted to head strength and conditioning coach. And so his whole program was focused on measurement. So um, my buddy would they had these different machines that would measure torque essentially in newtons, and so they would hook
Yeah,
every player to it and make them do, you know, my buddy was in charge of the hamstring curl machine,
yeah,
and so every week each player in the whole team would hamstring curl single leg max effort, and they
yeah,
would measure the difference in contraction,
yeah,
or like the force of contraction. And according to my friend, this was 2 years ago. So Tyler Miles' first off season, that information, including in fact, my friend told me 2 years ago that DJ Lagway had a 20% imbalance
yeah,
between his throwing arm and his non-throwing arm. So he said, "Watch out for shoulders." You know, look
yeah,
how that went. Um, but apparently, this information was taken again from a friend who was interning under the guy who then got promoted. So lots of steps here.
yeah,
But
yeah,
apparently, that information was provided to Napier directly, and that he needed to modify practice to account for
yeah,
these imbalances, and he chose not to.
yeah.
That's what my friend says who was there. You know what I'm saying? So I don't
Right.
know how true that is,
And to be
but it
fair,
seems
right?
as
Like a
yeah.
football coach doesn't understand biomechanics. They're not. And
Mhm.
honestly, I think it would be super beneficial for a position coach to actually. So let's just say I'm working with like George Chapman, right? And he's going over the techniques he's teaching his defensive linemen. Okay, like what he's focusing on versus like doing it with like proper biomechanics, it could be two different things, right? You might be saying like,
Mhm.
hey, drive with your shoulders, and then when people are driving, are they actually shrugging when they're pushing or not shrugging, right? Because you're still driving with your arms either way. But
Yeah.
if you're
That's
shrugging,
not something he would even consider.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's not going to think about that, right? So you could be like, oh, well, like that was good, but like there's stuff when you understand biomechanics that you see that if you're just like a position coach and you're not focused on that, you don't actually realize one makes you more likely to get hurt and you lose power. The other one is actually a lot more biomechanically sound and also
Yeah.
a lot, a lot stronger.
And I do think I'm a little biased in the sense that
Yeah,
that's like something I'm interested in. I took
yeah,
biomechanics at UF, and but it seems as though there would be some benefit to having some kind of more. And I think maybe the solution is that the strength conditioning needs to be taken more seriously in season, or if
yeah,
that needs to become a bigger part of coaching. Because technique coaching, like Billy Gonzalez coaching wide
yeah,
receivers, right? He's trying to get guys out of cuts as quick as possible, right?
yeah,
And he's doing that from a technique standpoint, but maybe from a biomechanical standpoint, there's something to be gleaned because obviously there is an optimal angle to pivot about each turn, and
yeah,
I think maybe I'm biased because I just find that stuff super interesting. But I
yeah,
think in a lot of ways, nutrition is kind of the new thing, right? Strength, like
yeah,
the first college football programs to have strength and conditioning, started to succeed. And so now nutrition came in, like Alabama was famous for having crazy nutrition programs under Saban. That's kind of the next big wave of collegiate athletics, which is something by the way, I think we do a terrible job at UF with nutrition. But it seems to me like that next level of sports science could be the next kind of barrier to break through
yeah,
in the strength and conditioning sector because
yeah,
you know I can have two guys of the same exact height, weight, strength, and same two D linemen, same max bench press, right? And if I have the biomechanically optimal technique,
yeah,
I'm gonna run you over because I just win. I win the physics battle, and so I
yeah.
think
And also, for example, let's just say you have two D linemen, and they're bench pressing the same, but one is actually doing it with a dysfunctional pattern, right? You
mhm,
could just fix the pattern without them getting stronger, and they'll be able to bench more than the other guy. And also,
yeah,
they're less likely to get hurt, and they're more likely to maximize their athletic potential. Like,
yeah.
like having that awareness, not only with the athletes but with the position coaches, in my opinion, is like super important.
But I
And
just wonder if
yeah,
there's
I just don't think it's happening.
there's not happening, and
Yeah,
there's not enough time. There's not enough time in the day.
you do it during
I'm
the
just
off
so worried
season.
about it. But even in the
Yeah,
off season, like I think that's the only time you would be able to
yeah,
fit it in. And
yeah,
even then, I think these guys are so busy that it's almost like naive to say, oh, we need to spend an hour working on biomechanical efficiency.
yeah.
You
But
know?
like, but again, maybe I'm biased here. right? But what's more important than that? Like, is you get that, you spend an hour doing that,
Yeah.
how, what's the actual like trade-off and benefit? Like, if it actually
No,
clicks into
I
them, like this player could perform 15% better, be like 30% like less likely to get hurt. Uh, if you spend this hour, like if you actually just like spend this
I
hour,
no, I
or
definitely
or if you
100%
as a
would.
position coach take the time to understand the stuff you're teaching from a biomechanics standpoint, when it looks about the same, but like what is actually like going on between like what you're doing your your shoulder blade,
Yeah.
like we're trying like it just it yeah
I mean, if I was a position coach, right, I would 100%. But I think you'd have.
yeah
I think I think it's weird because 100, not 100, 90% of the coaches in a football facility are from a football background, right?
yeah
And then you have this weird department full of, I mean, I don't want to say nerds, but like,
yeah
to get your CSCS or to coach strength and conditioning in Division One athletics, like you probably have to have a master's degree in strength and conditioning,
yeah
and then a CSCS, right? Like that's one of the hardest certifications to get. You got nutrition people, like these people go to
yeah
school and they get doctorates in nutrition. So you have this kind of weird, and these football coaches have come up through high school, whatever they played
yeah
themselves, and that's what they're through this
yeah
football pipeline. And there's this weird, like tacked on the side group
yeah
of I don't want to say scholars, but just it's different, right? It has nothing. It's
and
independent of football.
here's
You
a
can do
funny thing
strength.
though, right? If you think of any college football coach right now where you presented this idea to them, and like the one that would probably the most likely like actually get, because like what will actually get it, will implement it, it probably would be the SIG,
Hmm.
right? Because like again, just from the outside, like observing him, like it's like, okay, this will help you perform better. This is why. This is how you get an edge. This is how it makes sense. And like you want someone that can actually like process that, get the value of it, and start like kind of adapting. Right? You see this all throughout college football, or actually just football in general. There's all these coaches that used to be like good coaches at one point, and then they're just like no longer like Todd Grantham. Todd Grantham was a good
Dabo.
coach at one point. Why is he not a good coach anymore? He never kept growing. A lot of the stuff he's trying to do is still the stuff that in his heyday that worked. But like how well is he actually adapting, like learning new things, growing,
Hmm.
and just kind of keeping up with the times, right? Which kind of goes back to Buster, which is why someone like Buster I'm very high on, because he's showing adaptability and like ability to like assess the situation, learn, implement new things, maybe put the ego to the side and like constantly grow and learn. You need
Hmm.
that. Like in today's day and age with where college football is, you need that because you can no longer just stack like a three deep of all these talented players and just out talent another team anymore.
Yeah,
There's so
you
much
need
more
to
parity.
be at.
Yeah, so like you need to be able to coach, you need to be able to be tactical, and then you need to actually be on the cutting edge, like learning uh, 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 the newest things, and to figure out if that actually works or not, how to incorporate it to get an advantage. And guess what? As soon as it works, one person needs to do it for it to work, then everyone else is going to copy it,
Hmm.
right?
And I think
Yeah,
the first person to do that, to
yeah,
take a leap on something like that, will see benefit.
yeah,
And I don't know how you would implement it, but I can think of a world where there's like a strength conditioning intern or something
yeah,
just on the practice field. Like I don't know optimal defensive line technique. But I do know the goal is to generate as much horizontal force,
yeah,
right? And so, like, I can go out there and I can say, okay, Chapman, this is what you're teaching, but
yeah,
what about this? What if we do this?
yeah,
Same movement, different joint position, different joint angle, different level of tension, all this kind of stuff.
yeah,
And I think there's definitely, I don't see many coaches doing it. You're right, but I think
yeah, right. Like
it'll,
I
yeah,
could literally watch him be
the
like, hey,
first one that
look,
does.
when LJ McCray extended his arm, he internally rotated his shoulder. Like from that position, you put force on
Hmm.
that, you're way more likely to hurt your shoulder. So like yes, his
Hmm.
arm was extended, but like it's internally rotated when he's doing it, right? Or like his knees are
Yeah.
internally rotating in when he's actually like like when he's setting and then launching, Like these are things where like they're not gonna I highly doubt position coaches or just football coaches in general are looking at and understand like the mechanics of it. And if you're going to
Hmm.
teach good technique, wouldn't you actually want to understand like how the body is supposed to work so you can maximize like how efficient that technique is? I don't know. That's just me.
I mean, I completely agree
Yeah.
with you, and I would take that job in a
Yeah, yeah,
heartbeat,
yeah. That'd be
right?
fun, right? Maybe we're just creating a job for ourselves. All right,
Yeah.
let's move on to Aaron Philo, who just committed.
hmm
What are your thoughts on him?
Um, I I don't want to hype him up too much because obviously I think he's a good player, but I think he's got a big upside, and I think he kind of reminds me of like he's got that I don't want to say Lagway not in playing, but that Lagway story, right? A kid
Yeah.
that the fan base really liked, high
Well,
potential,
the
like
Georgia Tech
if
fan
Haynes,
base, the Florida fan base is
yeah,
not that high on him.
we're not that high on him, but
Yeah.
like his fan base, Haynes King is their Graham Mertz, right? And they
Yeah.
got Lagway on the bench, they got Philo on the bench, and so they're like, yeah, this kid's our future. Like, give him a year. I think it's like he threw for like just under 400 yards last season, right? So not a lot of playing time. Um, he's unproven. You can watch his highlights. They make him look good, right? The highlights of any player make him look good. I noticed when he seems more mobile than Lagway. Obviously a little smaller, but I think he has kind of that. I guess for the sake of the times, Fernando Mendoza ability to kind of like, all right, I got to take off, and just get some yards if he needs to, or I don't think he's not gonna be like Gunnar Stockton, right? Getting in car accidents on the field and then getting back up like nothing happened. But I also noticed when I was watching the film that he puts a lot of air under his throws. He has a big arm. I don't think he doesn't have the zip on it like maybe a Lagway or like an Anthony Richardson, right? Like he threw that football like no one else on the planet can.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a lot of velocity, but he definitely has the ability to complete the deep ball. I think he showed some accuracy. I mean, at this point, anyone would have better accuracy for us. But I just think too that with him, between him, Trammell, Will Griffin, and then I think they should take another portal QB, like maybe a lower tier, kind of a cheap guy for depth. Between those four candidates, and then you still have Aiden Warner on the roster as well. If there's a QB battle, like a true and honest battle between all of those people, I'm going to be happy with whoever wins it starting, right? If one person emerges from that group, I think keeping with Fernando Mendoza, you don't need to be a 2019 Joe Burrow or a Johnny Manziel. You just need to be good enough, right? We have the skill players. We have Jaden Ball in the backfield, fingers crossed. We don't need a Tim Tebow, right? We just need a guy who's on time, makes his reads, makes good decisions. In a way, we need a slightly more athletic Graham Mertz, I think.
Yeah. So Aaron Philo is really, it's funny, right? Because it's almost like kind of like the John Summerall effect. Like we were pissed when we hired him, and then like all these other fan
hmm
bases, especially the Tulane, were like, "What? These guys don't even appreciate him. Like what the hell?" And it's like the same thing with
He took our
Philo, right?
guy.
Like literally, like if you watch some of these like Georgia Tech podcasts, people talking about him, they are gutted. They are gutted that Aaron Philo is leaving. Like for them, he was like the heir apparent. He's Buster Faulkner's like handpicked quarterback. He could like throw all over the field. He's the best one to execute his offense. Like the signs that they've seen, they've been super encouraged by. And meanwhile, we're like, what is this? So I'll admit it. When I first saw Philo's film, I'm like, I'm not in. Like for a couple reasons, right? One, if he can't beat out Haynes King, how good can he be? Two, watching him throw, he has a strong-ish arm, but it's not that strong. Trammell has way
It's
more
not
zip on the ball than
spectacular,
he
yeah.
does. DJ has a way bigger arm than him. Okay, and this kind of gets
I
back
just
in.
yeah,
Yeah,
I wouldn't be
yeah,
surprised if Trammell won the starting job over Aaron
yeah.
Philo. I wonder how much we paid Aaron and how much we feel like we owe him the starting job because of that. But I would not be surprised to see Trammell Jones starting game one.
Uh, so I think it's gonna be Philo. I'll tell you why. Okay.
I mean,
Uh,
I think you're right, but I would,
so there's a couple things. I think one, we're emotionally anchored to like a physical specimen, right? So if they have like if they can run really fast, they have a lot of bursts, like a dual threat
Mhm.
quarterback, we like it. They have a big arm, we like it. Okay. But one, it's harder to tell. a quarterback having a good feel and poise, and then being able to process the field really quickly, not as sexy to us. Well,
But it's
why?
probably the most important skill.
Why? Because because when we're talking about college and NFL, it's football, but it's two very different games, right? At the NFL level, you need a big enough arm because you don't get the same kind of busted coverages. The
Hmm.
athletes are faster. They're able to execute more complex schemes, right? So you need a way bigger arm to actually be able to fit the ball in than you do in college, right? And in college, I think the most important attribute is your ability to actually process the field and then be accurate, right? Because one, then you can see when a coverage is busted fast enough to take advantage of it, and then two, uh, they're just not going to be able to play defense at a high enough level uh, for you to actually need that arm to actually like fit the ball in, right? So
Hmm.
like if you could fit the ball in throwing, for example, like throwing at an 80, right? It's nice if you could do 100, but you could do it. You could get away with that 80. So it's almost like overkill at the college level, like to have that arm strength. And how
Hmm.
many times have we seen quarterbacks, Felipe Franks, right? Like all the way, just like Anthony Richardson, just like
Anthony
these
Richardson.
monster, like NFL arms, able to make, and we're like, oh, it's an NFL throw, it's an NFL level throw, right? When we talk about it, but there's a reason why we call it an NFL level throw, is because you don't need it in college. You're just not going to need
Hmm.
to make NFL level throws in college, like for that to be like that important, right? So like Kyle Trask was, unfortunately, like the year before you got to UF,
Oh, I know all about Trask. Though.
unbelievable at processing the field and very very accurate. I want to say like he's the most accurate ever, but like very accurate, but probably the fastest at processing the field out of any college quarterback I have ever like watched. And because of that, he should have won the Heisman. But he dominated
Yeah.
college, and right, but his arm, he just had the biggest arm. I don't know exactly what's going on. I feel like he should have got a chance in the NFL. He didn't make it in the NFL. But who cares? We're not getting a quarterback to
Yeah.
be an NFL quarterback. Like we want
I
an
want him to be a
effective
Gator
college
quarterback.
quarterback.
Yeah.
So having said that, uh, Philo, I didn't realize most of his highlights until I started reading up. Were from his true freshman year. Like he got to
Yeah.
start
He
against
played more
NC
his true
State,
freshman year. Yeah.
freaking led a comeback in the fourth quarter, and I think he
Hmm.
had like some like moments against Miami. Uh, I guess like last year where Cam Moore was still there, and that was from a true freshman, right? So he
Hmm.
got a lot of time in two games, probably last some mop duty somewhere else, and then like this year, uh, he only got to play in one game, which is I think the opener against like Gardner Webb, whatever that school is called, and he
Yeah.
looked like he had good poise too, right?
Hmm.
Because there's one thing where like if you see the highlights, pocket's clean, it's a first read, and he has all day, and he's not under duress, he just throws it. Philo's highlights, he actually has to slide, move around the pocket a little bit. Sometimes you can see him move to a second read. He has to do a little bit off platform. He has to actually he's not set. He's under a little bit of duress. And for someone
Hmm.
that's a true freshman to have that kind of poise, and he seems pretty accurate on his deep throws. Like it actually really changed my opinion on him. And also like why would because like it's easy to write off Georgia Tech fans, right? Because it's just like they don't know any better when they're playing the ACC. But like we
Hmm.
literally have a whole fan base that see this guys as like the future, the savior, right? Like why would they be so high on him unless like like
Hmm.
they saw something like throughout the time there that we don't pick up on through highlight videos, right? Because if you look at
Yeah.
highlight, like look at like Tommy Castellano's highlight videos, they look amazing. Everyone's no, not everyone. A lot of people's highlight videos look amazing, but with highlight videos, what you don't get is how consistent they are, right? You only just
Hmm.
see like the amazing plays they make, but you don't see how consistent they are on down to down basis. Which for like someone like Jaden Ball, right? We appreciate him way more than the rest of the country because he's getting hit behind the line so often, and then he's making these hero plays to even get like positive yards or to get
Yeah.
back to the line of scrimmage, right? Like over and over and over. Whereas like a lot of these other like top running backs, they're just running through massive holes. Like they have a huge talent advantage. They're not having to do all of that, right? So like
Hmm.
context matters. And when a fan base is this high on a player, my first assumption is there's probably some context there that I'm missing that I'm not going to get from just looking at the highlights, right? So
Hmm.
I wasn't that high on him. Kind of excited about him now. I do think he's a favorite to win out over Trammell because part of the
Oh,
reason
for
why
sure.
we really like Trammell was, oh wow, this is, I think he got hurt like early on his senior year in high school, right? And then he didn't
Hmm.
play last year. His first game action in college, um, he actually looked like he had good poise, right?
He
You would
looked
see,
remarkably calm. He looked
yeah,
better than DJ.
yeah, he looked like he had good poise, even though it's against LIU, and then I think he came in against Kentucky. Was it Kentucky or A&M?
Hmm.
I can't remember now.
I believe so.
Both blowouts,
One of
but
the blowouts.
he looked decisive, which was in contrast to DJ. And he actually there was really really good zip on the ball, and he was actually way faster
Hmm.
than I thought. So the physical tools were there, but he wasn't moving around. He wasn't sliding around the pocket and then making reads the
No.
way Philo was, even as a true freshman, right? So you already know, like I'm a huge fan of Trammell, but I think just with those two, uh, I think the rumor is that Philo is getting 1.5 mil, and you're assuming Trammell is half of that at most, maybe even
Yeah.
less, right? Let's just say it's 500 grand for
Yeah, I'd be
Trammell.
surprised if he was.
Philo's at
Yeah.
1.5, so you're spending 2 million there, right? Sam Levitt, I think, was rumored to get somewhere between like 5 to 7 million, and let's just say you're on the low end. Sam
Jeez.
Levitt over in Kentucky, right? If you're spending $2 million between these two, which you think you have like a pretty decent floor, one, if there's one gets hurt, you have the other one, right? But two,
Hmm.
they're both young enough where they can actually potentially take a step forward that you're not realizing, and they have more of a potential to get better. And then if you're saving like three
Yeah.
million dollars where you can spend it somewhere else, I don't actually mind it. I get we want the big name quarterback, right? But every one of these, like Sorsby, Levitt, whatever, they were all kind of unheralded, not super highly ranked players at one point, right? And
Hmm.
are they like super athletes? Sorsby's actually like really fast. The Cincinnati guy that's probably gonna go to LSU, but they don't have like a monster arm. Like they're not like athletic like just freaks. Like you don't see them go like, wow, this is like a NFL like day one pick, right?
Yeah.
But for college, I think that's more than good enough, right? You saw that with Ohio State last year with Walker Howard. Like even right now in the playoffs, right? Like none of these quarterbacks are like, well, Dante Moore, Oregon, right? But like they're not just like, wow, like this guy's going to be a first round pick. Like this is like the star of the team.
Yeah.
Even Mendoza, like it's he's good, but he's not he's not like a superstar quarterback.
He's not. Yeah.
Yeah, and like Philo kind of fits that profile. So like again, anchoring, I don't think he's sexy by a lot of the metrics people care about, but I think the floor with him is incredibly high, and there's actually still enough upside. And then you
Yeah.
pair that with Trammell, and then you want to bring in another guy that you know. But if you're getting into the third string guy, you're probably screwed anyways. I don't actually really mind it.
Yeah. I would love like a Harrison Bailey type kind of just older dude who's gonna
Yeah,
not make very much money and sit on the bench, but just something to
I
at least
mean,
maybe have some mentorship. Yeah.
yeah, we'll see whether they bring one in, but it's going to be right. If you bring in a quarterback, that will be really cheap. And then I
Yeah, it
think
won't
I'm
be a
actually
competitor.
I'm actually okay with them bringing another quarterback in or not. Like I think it's like, oh well, we need another one. What if Philo and then Trammell gets hurt? If that happens, I think you're pretty screwed anyways.
Yeah.
Right? And
And
then
then
you're
Will
going to Will
Griffin can
Griffin.
play.
You're going to Will
And then
Griffin.
we
Yeah,
still have Aiden Warner,
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
we've been going pretty long. So let's actually just talk about one breakout candidate. If you had to pick your top one, who it is, and let's talk about breakout, like so not an obvious one, and then like why do you think so?
Yeah. So I have a hunch. I don't have anything to back this up, but I think Amir Jackson, who entered the portal and then was pulled back from the portal by Summerall, has the potential to operate. I think partly, I think that Amir Jackson is actually a pretty quality athlete. I think he has the physicals, and I think under Billy's system, he was being held back at the tight end spot. I don't think he is the kind of tight end that Billy Napier needed on his team. And I think that the fact that John has pulled him back out of the portal tells me that they really believe he's something special, that he can be a versatile and also kind of, dangerous pass catcher. I think his blocking is actually pretty good considering he's more, I think at times considered a receiving tight end. Um, but I think honestly, to me, the way he entered the portal and then was pulled back in tells me they probably offered him a significant raise,
Okay.
which is to me implies they're going to use him.
Okay. So you think it's because okay. Mine is Javari Flowers. Okay.
He was my defensive pick, but you said just one. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'll tell you why. For players that can become stars, things I look for is do they have like attributes like unique like so for example to me like a star player has at least one usually a few elite attributes and then their game is
Hmm.
centered around maximizing that, right? Like no player is just like elite at everything, but they usually have like one or two or maybe three elite traits that then they can actually like use to maximize their advantage over someone else, right? So if you don't have an elite trait, it's going to be hard for you to become a star, right? Now,
Hmm.
Jabari Flowers has at least two elite traits, in my opinion. He's already like pretty. He moves like well, like he's grown into his body, and he
Hmm.
has like verified like track speed. And then
Yeah,
on
he
the
played.
field,
He plays big, and he's
yeah, and then
yeah.
on the field last year, he got burnt, right? But you could also see he was very instinctive, where he would actually like especially with people running like screens or um, like curl routes, he'll jump it and he'll actually like lay the pop, which like which cornerback or safety can we say that we had like that actually like hits that hard? We mentioned like Triquet's Bridges, right? So
Other than
he was
him,
able.
no one.
Yeah, so he has speed. He's willing to like he actually is instinctive enough to on some of the plays actually come crashing down and actually like lay a big hit. And I think he actually reclassified too, right? So he was like a late recruitment. He was actually a 26 recruit, I think, that
I
reclassified. So
think.
he's
I
he's
think
very
so.
very
Yeah.
young, right? And based off what I see, I think it was very very smart because he's not the tallest guy, right? But he's thick, he hits hard, he's super athletic, and he has instinct, which is perfect for the star position, right?
Hmm.
I think the best star we've ever had is Chauncey Gardner, right? Like, is he still on the Eagles? It was like he reminded me a lot of Chauncey Gardner, and that's a player where like when I talk about breakout, like not just like oh well he's going to take a step forward, like he actually has attributes to be a star. So
Hmm.
if this guy was here, my offensive player would be my boy Muiz Tankara, but he's in the transfer portal.
Yeah.
I see what Billy was going with there. This guy is like 6'3", I think like 208, 210. What I really like about Muiz, we'll keep an eye on him, right? Like, we'll record this. For someone that big and like that young, he is extremely smooth with the way he moves. Right. So we talked about like functional movement before. Like as soon as I saw him, like this guy is extremely like he's very well balanced. But the way he moves, there's not like glaring like movement dysfunction. And then for someone that
Hmm.
big to already move that way, I think there's like a lot of upside there for like a 3-star player. Right. I would love like
Yeah.
Luis
A low,
Sankara is
low
someone
risk
I would
pick.
love to be able to bring back and then like keep him because he's someone I actually think has like star potential. Again, like a lot of things have to go
And you don't have
right,
to pay him a bunch. Yeah.
but he has elite size and his like the smoothness of his movement is already like elite in my opinion. And then if you want an example of that in
Yeah.
a different sport, uh, like Anthony Black this year with the Magic is someone that kind of like they grew into their body, and then everything else just kind of clicked in, right? Like I think like on your
Yeah.
text, I was like like game one or game two. This is before he broke out. I'm like, this guy's gonna be really good because like I saw him last year. I'm like, I don't get it. He's like six overall pick. Like he's like kind of lanky. He looks like very like awkward in his body. And then this year, I'm like, oh, something just like clicked in. And like now he's having a breakout season. I think he's averaging like 20 points a game the last like month and a half. So
Yeah.
I think like those are like players like I love betting on, like because of the hit, right? Like the upside is very, very high. And Jawari
Yeah.
Flowers is my breakout.
I think too, I can't remember that guy's name that played for Florida State last year. The really big receiver they had,
Deuce
like he was like
Robinson?
6'4".
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah,
Deuce Robinson.
yeah,
Um, I think I mean, obviously there was a couple plays where he got toasted, but
yeah.
I mean, you're right. He's a little guy.
Mhm.
I say little. He's a big dude,
He's
but
bigger than you.
guarding Deuce Robinson,
Yeah,
yeah, guarding Deuce Robinson, that's a
yeah.
mismatch, and he was able to play um, phenomenally.
Yeah,
I
he
think
was
for
very
a true
physical. He was
freshman.
very
Yeah,
physical with Deuce Robinson. And he
yeah,
got burned a few times, but he was also like in his grill, like just actually
yeah,
like competing.
and I like it.
Yeah,
And I think this kind of speaks to our identity. First off, just DB identity in general, right? You got to be a little chippy, but
yeah,
I think as a Florida, I think something we missed under the Billy defense is this kind of like this grittiness, this griminess that we've come to expect from like our successful defenses, right? Like when Spikes, ran over what's that dude's name
no
from
Sean
Georgia?
Moreno.
No,
Yeah,
Nation Moreno.
no Sean.
When he runs him over and he's laying in his face, calling him like that's what the identity of like our
Yeah,
successful Florida defense was.
yeah,
And I think we've lost that. And I think a guy like, Flowers, he got burnt, but he
yeah,
got back up in his face the next play and he fought him with his hands. And like,
yeah,
that's a dude that's, I think Deuce was a senior, right? Or he's an upperclassman at least. That's a grown man
yeah,
compared to like an 18-year-old kid. And, like, that's something I like to
yeah.
see that fight,
No, no,
especially
no,
at the
no, no.
DB
That's my
position.
guy. Yours
Because,
is Samir Jackson. We already established that.
but if I'm going to pick,
Yeah,
I want you to pick a high school player like from this class. For me, it's going to be it's kind of cheating because he's our highest ranked, but I think Gross, Davian,
yeah,
however you say it,
yeah,
Brock. I think I was reading about him today. He's the 200-meter gold medalist in Texas, high
yeah,
school track. He played running back before they put him at wide receiver.
yeah,
I think he's like 6 foot or 5'10" or something, like 190 around there. Like, and he kind of to me strikes like a Vernell Brown, like a
yeah,
first year speed twitch, like Vernell Brown. I mean, it looks like Percy Harvin out there, right? He's getting vertical on every single play. I think that Davian Groch has especially now that Vernell Brown and Dallas are up the depth chart. I think Groch can step into that role that Vernell held this year.
yeah. I'm being honest. I haven't paid attention to recruiting as closely this year, just because like I like it doesn't like with what I think about the transfer portal and everything. I don't. But if I had to
You
pick
don't
a
even think
player,
it'll matter.
if I had to pick a player, I like Justin Williams a lot,
Hmm.
and for a couple of reasons. So he had he was a very good running back and receiver. So he was successful playing both. Um,
Yeah.
but he kind of has like what I was talking about. He's not the fastest or the twitchiest, but he's very, very smooth,
Hmm.
right? And like like a player like just like Justin, like DK was very smooth. Now DK actually tested way better than I thought he was going to at the combine, right? But when you see him on the field, you don't think Burner, you don't think he's very twitchy, but like there's like a smoothness,
Hmm.
there's like a controlled the efficiency about him that I really like. And I think maybe he's a 4 star, 3 star. He's not the highest rated,
He's
uh,
a 4 star.
but
He's from Buchholz.
yeah, but he produced in high school, right? He actually produced in probably more than any of our other recruits, even though he wasn't really high. And then he's very, very smooth. So I think he's very underrated, like kind of like in a DK
Yeah.
kind of way.
I do think both of them have a potential to be like, I feel like we kind of bring in two pretty solid freshman wide receivers every year, and I think those two right there will be it.
Yeah, and if not, transfer portal. That's
And
by the way,
if not transfer portal. Yeah.
transfer portal. I think the most abundant position in the portal is receivers because there's just
It's
so
got to
many
be.
like talented, athletic receivers with potential that were even in the wrong position, like wrong offense, where like just like like maybe take
Hmm.
it's just you could get them for the cheapest. I know we want to keep Vernell in Dallas, right? Because but if I was going to
Beyond that,
strategize, I think in college football, I think the least valuable position is actually receiver out of the portal, and then running back. Like you can get like the difference between say like a 1.1 like a $800,000 player versus say like a $200,000 player is minimal. You're either going to have to go for like the real sure things, which is just so much more expensive, or just spend a little less and then take your shot on like high upside players. There's just so
yeah.
many of them, so many of them.
And I think every team has a Tank Hawkins, right? Fast dude,
Yeah,
high
yeah, exactly.
upside, sitting on the bench,
Yeah,
and half of them are going to hit the portal, and there's just
yeah,
running around. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. All right, this
But
has been
yeah,
a
I think
super
Amir
long.
Jackson.
Yeah. All right,
That's my
Jabari
that's my
Flowers
my
is
bingo card.
Jabari Flowers. My
I'm gonna laugh when he doesn't even play or something.
I think he'll play. Yeah.
I hope so.
All right. Well, this is the pilot episode. Um, anything else you'd like to add or say?
Go Gators.
Go Gators. We probably need to make it shorter in the future. Less topics. All right. Cool. I'm going to stop recording.